In the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful. My name is Attorney Sadiyah Evangelista, and I am a Harris County criminal defense lawyer. Along with my colleague, Jolanda Jones, we both fight for justice, freedom, justice, and equality here at the courthouse. Warren Fitzgerald. We have another attorney here from the NAACP. Now, on a couple of days ago, the Houston Chronicle came out with an article that was written by, I believe her name was Gabrielle Banks, and she wrote a story. She's doing an investigation concerning the bail system, the felony bail system here in Harris County. Now, the story revealed that the policy of the bail system 100% of the time in the past 12 years has denied citizens accused of bails, personal recognizant bonds, which means that these individuals are not a flight risk. They don't have the financial assistance to be able to secure a bond, but based on their name, on their signature, that they'll show up for court. Now, it's been the past 12 years that these particular 10 magistrates and the 31 judges decided that they were not going to allow any of these defendants to have a pre-liberty bond. So the Houston Chronicle, Ms. Gabrielle, wrote a story, and one of the judges in particular made a comment. And let me read his comment. And you tell me if his comment is racist or not, or biased or not. This particular judge says, referring to black men in the bonding system, they're not good risk. The young black men, and it's primarily young black men rather than young black women, charged with felony offenses, they're not getting good advice from their parents. Who do they get advice from? Ragtag organizations like Black Lives Matter, which tell you resist police, which is the worst thing in the world you could do to tell a young black man. They teach contempt for the police, for the whole justice system. And that particular judge is none other than the Harris County District 209 judge, Michael McSpadden. Now, he is the longest sitting judge here in Harris County. And this particular judge blatantly just announced his racist mind, his racist heart, and a racist statement against black males in particularly, and black people in particularly. And this is in violation of the Texas Judicial Code. And let me read this really quick. In the Texas Judicial Code, and the canon number 3, it states, a judge shall perform judicial duties without bias or prejudice. A judge shall not, in the performance of his judicial duties by words or conduct, manifest bias or prejudice, including but not limited to bias or prejudice based upon race, sex, religion, national origin, disability, age, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, and shall not knowingly permit staff, court official, and others subject to the judge's discretion control to do so. Now, by making those statements, this Judge McSpadden, has cast reasonable doubt on his ability to impartially judge, and he also showed his bias, which interferes with the proper performance of his duties. Now, we know that a judge must have the freedom to decide cases based on the facts and law, not based on public opinion, the views of special interest groups, or even the judge's personal opinion. But what we found, that this particular judge, who's been sitting on this bench for 36 years, has announced that he has personal biases against black male defendants. And that goes against every aspect of the bench that he sits in. So as a Harris County defense attorney and a defense attorney and a mother of black males, I'm asking, and we're requesting, and we're demanding that he voluntarily resign his bench. He retired from being on the bench. We're asking the Texas State Commission for Judicial Conduct to do an investigation on these particular statements. It has shown that the magistrates did receive this particular policy of no PR bonds for defendants, and to investigate that. And we're asking that Harris County revamp, overhaul, and change their felony bail system. What we're seeing is that the Harris County criminal justice system, period, has had systematic institutional racism just bred all in it. But we must stop with the judges, who are the ones who dole out justice, freedom, and equality. And we know that when a judge has a racist heart, He doesn't have the capacity to be able to give freedom. He doesn't have the capacity to give justice. And he sure doesn't have the capacity to be able to dole out equality. And we know that based on these statements. So we're asking today that Judge Michael McSpadden step down from his bench, either voluntarily. We're asking him to resign from his position, to not run again for this position, and we're asking the Texas Commission to do an investigation and sanction him for his biased and his
Michael
racist
McSpadden
comments.
is a racist. He's born a racist, probably, but certainly his policies have been racist. You know, after Trump, people feel free now to say what they used to keep behind their hoods or under their hoods. And I didn't need for Judge McSpadden to say what he said for me to know he was racist. He has racist policies within his court if you've ever been in his court. One of his racist policies, and let me be clear, he super punishes black people, but he also punishes poor people. So one of the policies that he has is that he does not let a lawyer get off of a case if a client doesn't pay them. He won't let them withdraw. So let me tell you how this works. In the criminal justice system, and you've seen all the statistics, we've been working on bail reform forever. We've had federal courts say we're racist here in Harris County, right? So they're trying to get, or we're trying to get rid of policies that discriminate against people based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, identity. So we are trying to get rid of that stuff. But what he does is, when someone walks into my office or someone calls me about a loved one who's locked up, I go and I speak with the person, I assess their case, and then you determine as a lawyer, how much is this case going to cost, right? So, you know, cases can range from whatever. Say, for example, if a case, you value it at $10,000, right? Most poor people don't have $10,000 sitting in the bank. They're going to have to pay on installments. That's just what's going to happen. And so there are some lawyers like myself who will allow you to pay over installments, right? And then you put in the contract, I don't know, the fee is $5,000. You're going to pay me $100 a month for however long. But if you stop paying me as we agreed, then I can withdraw from your case, right? That allows you not to discriminate per se against people who can't afford a lawyer, right? So in McSpadden's case, in McSpadden's court, I did that. Somebody was poor, they wanted me to represent them. I represented them. The person couldn't afford to pay me. I represented the person for as long as they could afford to pay me. And when I wanted to get off of the case, McSpadden was like, his court policy is he never lets you off of a case if you're a lawyer, right? So if you're a lawyer and your client doesn't pay you, he does one of two things. If your client stops paying you, which breaches the contract, right, he won't let you off of the case. So you probably have a lawyer who be real feeling some kind of way that you're forced to defend somebody that hasn't paid you. I don't think that makes for a good professional attorney-client relationship, right? Or, you know, if they won't let you off, and I've literally had to try cases where I wasn't paid. Now, I have a good reputation, and so I continue to fight hard anyway, but I know I made a decision, a professional decision, not to take cases in Judge McSpadden's court. So if you happen to land in Judge McSpadden's court and you're charged with a crime, you're probably not going to be able to get me unless you can afford to pay me up front. Which means in McSpadden's court, the only kind of cases I can have are people who have a lot of money. That denies a court from anybody poor, at least as it pertains to me. And he had the nerve to tell me that I didn't handle my business because I didn't get my money up front. Like, what? Really? How you trying to tell me how to run my practice? And if I have a practice set up so that I can represent poor people and allow them to pay me on installments, how are you going to force people to breach my contract? So there are a lot of things that Judge McSpadden does that are absolutely racist. But I didn't need for McSpadden to say what he said to know he's racist. All you have to look at is the sentences that he imposes. If you're black, your sentences are going to be longer than white people who have the same charge. If you're black, the bail is going to be higher than white people who have the same allegations. He's just a racist. And so I'm not asking him to do anything. I'm asking for the judicial commission to remove him from the bench. What other sanction is needed? He's a freaking racist. It's in his heart. And when one of the black judges who just got elected, Judge Jordan, asked him, he sent him a letter. He was like giving him the benefit of the doubt. And he's saying, oh, I know you didn't. Hey, Green Eyes. He said, I know you didn't really mean that. I know it takes courage for you to tell people, you know, your feelings. But I'm the father of black male children. And he responded to Judge Jordan that, no, I don't take no courage when you speaking the truth. So he doesn't even have compassion for black men, for black boys who he knows are raised by fathers who are educated, a lawyer, an elected official, a judge. So what, does he think Judge Jordan is giving his kids like bad advice? And it's interesting how he's choosing to justify his statements talking about Black Lives Matter being ragtag. Well, he's been racist long before Black Lives Matter even came into existence. So what's his excuse for denying black kids bails before Black Lives Matter? And I happen to be a mother of a black male child, right? It's not Black Lives Matter or me that teach my child to have contempt for the police. It's racists like him and police oppression of black people that make people have contempt for the police. So Judge McSpadden, you know, I'm the person who says what people think when they don't believe they're being recorded. So I'm going to say it. He's chicken shit, right? He's a racist. He's oppressive. And I am certain that he has ruined generations of families because of his racism. And we allow this to go punished. And I'm going to call out all defense lawyers who aren't here, because you all represent black clients, because that's who the police arrest the most. So white lawyers, white criminal defense lawyers are getting wealthy and can at a minimum pay their bills because of black male clients, but I don't see them here. It's systemic. And I learned a lot from my white attorney clients, from my white colleagues who practice criminal defense, who are feeling some kind of way about black judges being on the bench because they don't think that they can get a fair shot because they're used to this good old boy system. And so, you know, and I have no clue why anybody who knows me would think it's okay to ask me, you know, about that. So I say that to say this. Judge McSpadden right now is the head of the snake that we see, but this whole system needs to be revamped because, and I'm going to end with this, everyone thinks felonies are like really, really, really bad. They're the highest level of crime. You know, less than a gram of cocaine is a felony. You can't even see it with your eyes. You cannot see it with your eyes. And it is an addiction. And they're criminalizing addiction. And I had a client who had $1,000 bail, which meant if his family had $100 whole, they could bail him out. And he's in jail for a month and a half because he didn't have $100, charged with a felony. And you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So Judge McSpadden needs to go, and this racist system needs to go. And I'm asking my colleagues on the criminal defense bar to grow some nuts and stand out here, because this man is discriminating against our clients, unless you don't have any black clients. And I know they all have black clients.
And shoulder to shoulder in support of my sister, Sadiyah Evangelista, my dear sister, Jolanda Jones, and everyone else here in demanding the removal of Judge McSpadden. The great W.E.B. Du Bois once said that a system cannot fail a people that it was never meant to represent in the first place. But what we have to understand is that systems do not create themselves. Systems are created through the minds of men. And unfortunately, the system in Harris County has been poisoned by the racist minds of men like Judge McSpadden. They tell you, listen, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. Believe them. Judge McSpadden is a white male in a black robe with a red neck. He's a white male in a black robe with a red neck. And for decades, we've watched white males try to cover their rednecks with their black robes. But in the age of Donald Trump, where we no longer believe in political correctness, he's coming out and he's telling you exactly who he is: a white male in a black robe with a red neck. So we want to say to Judge McRedneck, we are here to challenge you and your mentality. I believe that every black male who has been through his court and has been denied bail should come together to file the biggest class action lawsuit in the state of Texas, a lawsuit like you've never seen. We cannot take this lying down. So this is a man who sits behind the bench and judges people based upon their innocence or their guilt. But he's told you in his own words that he himself is guilty of racism, guilty of discrimination, guilty of being a white male with a black robe trying to cover up his red neck. I stand in support of my sisters and brothers to say, remove Judge McSpadden by any means necessary. Thank
Ashton P. Woods with Black Lives Matter Houston. When I founded Black Lives Matter Houston, it was with the express purpose to only answer to black people. For Judge McSpadden to call Black Lives Matter as a movement, a ragtag movement, is moot. I'm not moved. I'm not surprised by the litany, the vitriol that he has to say. These are a bunch of people. We know that this whole damn system is guilty as hell. The whole system, all of it. The city of Houston, the judicial system, the state. This system needs to not be reformed, but it needs to be abolished. We saw the state pass legislation for PR bonds and gave it to the hands of people like McSpadden and at least 13 other judges, not just him, who need to resign. And it's not an ask, it's a demand. Get your redneck white ass out of that courtroom and let somebody come in who could be fair, just, and impartial to the people who need it. People who look like me, who you constantly screw over. And let me tell you something. As I stand here today, I can tell you that I walked the steps of the state legislature and helped to pass bills, including the Sandra Bland Act, for people, not just Houston, 27 million Texans. We don't just protest, we legislate. We affect policy. You got to come a little harder, white man. You got to come a little harder. And we are coming for you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, you need to resign.
We are demanding that Judge Michael McSpadden resign, or the Judicial Commission remove him immediately. Now, I've been given the liberty by the activist community to be kind of the inside man, which means that I'm allowed to interface with the police, with the judges, with the powers to be, but I have to report back to my brothers and my sisters. I say that tongue-in-cheek because Mr. McSpadden talked about black families not giving black sons good advice. But he don't condemn that family courthouse where they're giving away our children and they are destroying families. CPS proves that there are black relatives that can take these children in, but they will take them away and give them to these foster parents, white foster parents. And it winds up, and the statistics show that when they get into foster care, there's a pipeline to the penitentiary. Judge McSpadden won't condemn HISD, which is a school system that practices educational apartheid. That's right. White children are only 8 to 10% of HISD, yet they make up nearly 80% of all the magnet school and good programs. So talk to me about education, Mr. McSpadden. And then, I'm the inside man. The MacArthur Foundation came down here and issued a grant challenge, a safety and justice challenge. They offered millions of dollars to Harris County and other counties, and they applied. Harris County applied. Why did they apply? The challenge was Harris County has overcrowded jails and a disparity. Black people make up 18% of Harris County's population, but we're 48% of the jail population. So they challenged Harris County to reduce the jail population and reduce the disparity. And you want to know why there's a disparity? Let me tell you this. I sat in meetings with unprecedented cooperation between the police, sheriff's department, constables, the judges, the district attorneys, members of the bar, the bail, the pretrial people all sat around and knew they had to reform this system. The Tea Party types wanted to reform it because they knew that the way that they were jailing people were bankrupt in this county, this state, and this nation. The white racists in the room even knew that if they keep locking up black and brown people, they won't have anybody to pay taxes, to pay into pension systems, and to be able to support the system because the demographics say that white people are getting old, and white, and black and brown people are young, strong, and if we're not educated, don't have health care, don't have proper job and capital resources to build businesses, there'll be nobody here to pay taxes and be able to pay into the Social Security and pension system. Lastly, they decided they were going to accept the challenge. They accepted millions of dollars and they put up millions of dollars to reduce the jail population and to reduce the disparity. But the reason why it hasn't moved, the needle really hasn't moved, is because of the likes of Michael McSpadden on the bench. Prosecutors, no matter who we put in there, we can have a blue team at the top, but there's still elements within the prosecution, within the criminal justice system right there to prosecute that are racist. There are judges that are racist. There are people who in the bail system don't want the bail system reformed because they make money from it as it is. There are people in the police department. I don't care if you got Mr. Chief Acevedo, Chief Finner, a black man that's the second in command over operations. There's still elements within HPD that will over-police us and lock us up. So until we get all of them out the way and get rid of this nasty, no good, rotten system, then we're going to continue to suffer the way we're suffering. So my last call to you is not one of civic or political or economic or social. Mine is a divine call from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You will either give us justice or else. If you think Harvey was something, wait till you see the next thing will come if you don't give the people justice. There's a God on the scene today that will give us justice. You think you're God, Mr. Trump. You think you're God, Governor Abbott. You think you're God at the county commissioner office or the sheriff or the police department. You think you're God, but wait till you meet the real God. He's not a spook. He's a man just like you and I, and he is angry at the way his people are getting treated. Black, brown, white, yellow, poor. He's tired of it, and now he's going to extract justice. It's justice or else. This is the final call. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
It's for an investigation. I don't know how long it would take. I know you've asked him to step down. If he doesn't step down, what will y'all do in between, or do you just have to wait for the investigation?
Well, this morning I did file a complaint, an official complaint with the Judiciary Committee asking them to do an investigation. So he's going to have to answer that particular grievance. And I'm not the only person that has filed a grievance. My understanding there are going to be some judges also who will file a grievance against his statements, and some defendants as well who were in his court and denied the opportunity to have a pre-trial bail.
I know that I'm going to talk with like the NAACP and other civil rights organizations. I know that I'm going to speak with the NAACP and other civil rights organizations, because I actually think we should pull the stats on who he gives bail to, how much he gives bail to, and all those kind of stats. But I also think that anybody who was before Judge Spadden, whether he gave you a bond or not, I think everyone, especially black men, should all join together, and every case that he's ever ruled on should be reviewed. And every person who's ever had him dole out punishment should have the opportunity to have their convictions overturned. I know that happened with the DNA, because I'm one of the lawyers who helped shut down the DNA crime lab, and they sent out notices to everybody who were convicted and in the system because of DNA tests, and they were appointed appellate lawyers to look into their cases to see if their convictions could be overturned based on the dry labbing, the fake testing, and the just flat out lies by the analysts. I think this is the same situation. If you look across the country where you've had like rogue police officers or rogue DAs, they've literally looked into all the cases. And so that's not unprecedented. In fact, it is normal. So I think that needs to happen. And I think that the Judicial Commission should act expeditiously. I mean, because even when given the opportunity by Judge Jordan to retract his statement or say maybe I was misunderstood, he dug his heels in and said it didn't take courage to speak the truth. And so I think that there's an imminent danger of imminent harm to anybody black who's in his court.